Hey mate, 40 here. So unlike you young blokes, when I do my pull-ups, I can really only do them every other day, right? I try to do them every day and I'm just way too tired. I mean, I might not even be able to come all the way up with one. But I heard when you do the pull-ups, it's good for your shoulders. My shoulders are really weak. Like when I do pull-ups or weights or anything or push-ups, I sense that I'm just doing it all with my arms rather than my shoulders. So someone told me the other day that if I work on the pull-ups, that will strengthen the shoulders, while the chin-ups, that will strengthen the biceps. So really trying to do more pull-ups, and today was pull-up day. And so there's my favorite tree branch that I like to do my pull-ups on. But it was surrounded by stuff, like someone was moving in or out of an apartment building. And I thought, please God, let there be a little room for my pull-ups. But even more challenging is that there were 3 teenage girls sitting on this stuff, like right before my branch, my favorite branch to do pull-ups. So I would not be dissuaded, right? I got out there, jumped on the branch and started doing pull-ups, and these Sheilas, I would not be, they were laughing. They were laughing at me. Like I'm struggling to do 3 pull-ups and they're laughing at me. And at the same time, I'm trying to carry on a conversation with a friend. And, I do my 3 pull-ups, walk away for a minute, and they're just cackling and laughing. And when I turn around to come back to the tree branch, they have moved over to another tree and they're trying to do pull-ups themselves, but they can't do any. Like, so they're like trying to boost each other up to be able to do a pull-up. But they're all cackling and laughing and having a good old time. And I'm just like back to, grim old duty, do another 3. But the last one is only 80% true, trying to carry on a conversation. And they're probably wondering, like, who's this creepy old dude, trying to like show off by doing pull-ups in front of us. But no, they became fully absorbed with their own project of trying to do pull-ups. And they were just giggling and laughing and boosting each other up the tree. But this kind of touches on like a wee bit of an issue for me. So I remember once I went to an engagement party and I saw that these young women at this engagement party, when they would spot each other across the room, they would squeal and they'd run towards each other and they'd like leap into each other's arms. And the next day I went to therapy and I talked about, how stupid these young women were, squealing and whooping and falling into each other's arms. And my therapist said, well, probably you wish that you could squeal and whoop. You wish that someone would squeal for joy to see you. You wish that you could be, included in their reindeer games, but Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, right, doesn't get to be included in the, all sorts of normal forms of human connection are just a foreign language to me. I think it's from growing up in foster care. Seeing these 3 girls just like giggling and laughing and having a great time together. And I'm having kind of this grim, solo experience, just me and the bloody tree branch. And it just reflects, I got this tiny wee bit of an issue with loneliness. And I don't think it's an unfamiliar problem for bachelors. And I've just been pierced by this C.S. Lewis quote that I read a few days ago. The price for freedom is loneliness. Happiness comes from being tied. Like, ouch. So I spent 5 of the last 18 months, walking around Australia, most of that time in Sydney, perhaps the most beautiful city in the world. And I would typically spend all day walking 10, 12, 15, up to 20 miles around the gorgeous Sydney Harbour. But 98% of my walks were on my own. And so who could I share them with? Well, the painful truth is I was sharing them with you. Like I'd make videos to feel less lonely as I was wandering around Sydney. I mean, how many, 57-year-old dudes get to go to Sydney and just walk around all day? So yeah, I have this surfeit of freedom. I could take off right now, go to Sydney. I've got enough savings to live comfortably for a year in Sydney. But the price of that tremendous amount of freedom that I have is loneliness. And the solution to loneliness is not, filling it with other people and connection so much as reconfiguring my inner architecture, right? Loneliness was a reaction that I learned from my early years. And until I have those corrective emotional experiences, reconfigure my inner life, my soul, I can be around a whole bunch of people. I can be right in the middle of things and still feel lonely. So there's been quick solutions that I've found for loneliness, and that's borrowed functioning from other people, like getting a girlfriend, getting an obsession. You notice how I'm always hopping from obsession to obsession, because when I get an intellectual obsession or a religious obsession, a recovery obsession, diet and exercise obsession, whenever I get an obsession, it just kind of holds my loneliness at bay for a while. Or when I bring new people into my life, or have a relationship, or I'm semi-adopted into a family, or develop a new circle of friends, or develop a new community, or go join a cult, or apprentice myself to some great guru, like a virtual guru like Dennis Prager, or a real life guru like a rabbi. That kind of keeps the loneliness at bay for a while, but it keeps coming back until I reconfigure the inner architecture of my soul. And the most effective way that I found to do that is to develop self-respect from living a life that is akin to a symphony. So where the various parts of my life are not at war with each other, but rather they're building on each other. So when I was writing on the pornography industry and also trying to make my way in Orthodox Judaism, right, those were two facets of my life that were very much at war with each other. And thank God I don't have that anymore. I've reconfigured my live streaming so that it is, more at ease with what I might encounter in the wider world when I go to synagogue, when I go to Starbucks, when I walk down the street, when I meet people in public places and they happen to see my live stream or hear my podcast. That's not going to be at war with my well-being. So that means that I don't discuss edgy topics nearly as much as I did, that if I do touch on things that are edgy, I try to phrase things in a much more socially acceptable manner. So I've toned down my show, lost a lot of viewers because it's not as exciting, it's not as cutting edge, it's not as as edgy and deviant and off the beaten path as it used to be, to try to keep my show more in line with what's for my overall social well-being. So trying to build self-respect throughout my life, so that from the way I conduct myself with earning money, the way I conduct myself with clients, the way I conduct myself at synagogue, in my 12-step programs, socially with friends, when I'm just alone, me and my computer, on my blog, on my live stream. I just want everything preferably working together, or at least if they aren't working together, I would prefer that they're not at war with each other, that they're not kind of canceling each other out. Because I find when my life is working and I respect what I'm doing, then the loneliness doesn't get to me. The loneliness kind of gets to me when the self-hatred gets to me, and the self-hatred gets to me when I make bad decisions. If I eat too much, if I'm socially inept, if I'm self-aggrandizing, if I'm pushing myself into conversations where I'm not wanted, if I'm misreading the room, if I'm not taking other people into consideration, if I'm falling out of touch with reality and then getting humiliated. So like, what if I was spending my time like playing a video game, so I was like number one in the world at a particular video game, and that made me feel happy, and perhaps it filled a hole in my soul and reduced the intensity of the loneliness. Is that a maladaptive delusion? So my thinking is, your delusions are maladaptive delusions if they directly lead to humiliation from that delusion. So if you're really good at video games and that does not lead to humiliation in real life, then I don't think it's a maladaptive delusion. If you're really good at tennis or Shakespeare, or playing marbles, or performing the commandments of Orthodox Judaism, or you're a lay leader in your church, or whatever it is, you're a leader in your business softball league, right? Whatever you're doing that's providing you with meaning and solace and makes you feel expert and great, right? If it's not accompanied by frequent bouts of absolute humiliation, then you're probably doing something right? You probably fallen on something that's adaptive. But I don't know about you, but I've spent so much of my life just trying to get rid of myself, just trying to run away from who I am. So early on, I wanted to be a Christian missionary because I kind of wanted to run away from just being a loser at school who occasionally peed himself. And then I tried to run away from myself. I had these delusions that I grew up to be a great general or a great political leader. And then, yeah, the late starts are hurting 40s ratings on the East Coast. That's true. And then I tried to run away from it. I said, I'll just become a great journalist. I'll become a TV sportscaster. I'll become the next Walter Cronkite. Maybe I'll return to Australia, become a political leader. Maybe I'll become the editor of the Jewish Journal of Los Angeles. Maybe I'll become the editor of the Los Angeles Times. Maybe I'll become the mayor of Los Angeles. Maybe I'll become a U.S. senator from California. Maybe I'll start a nonprofit to help people who struggle with the same things that I struggle with. So I get all these great plans, and I get excited about them, and it kind of diminishes the loneliness and the sense of failure or frustration with my life for a while. But then all these fixations, they always disappear, and I'm left back on my own resources. And so if I'm living a life that's basically a symphony, which is what I feel right now. So I feel amazing right now. I didn't wake up until about 5:12 a.m. this morning. So it's only the second time in about 6 weeks that I managed to wake up after 5 a.m. So normally I'm wide awake and going at 3 a.m. But overall, I feel like my life's a symphony. I'm up at 3 a.m. I'm reading. I'm doing my exercises. I'm meditating, prayer, working on preparing for this show, writing blog posts, earning good money during the day. I get to, hang out with, the beautiful people in Beverly Hills, come back, maybe do a quick show here, get on my exercise bike, lift some weights, and maybe socialize. All right, overall, pretty good life. What I need to do is like that symphony thing. Like I want those various components of my life, from what I'm eating, what I'm drinking, how I'm earning my money, my prayer life, my meditation life, my political life, my activist side, my social media side, right, my writing side, my scholarly side, my religious side, my community side, my recovery side. I just need them preferably working together, at least not at war with each other. So at various times in my life, I have had that sense of mastery and symphony that I feel like I have right now, but then one thing will go wrong. Yes. This live stream is a bittersweet symphony. So I don't know if have you had times in your life you felt like everything's working, like you're in flow, man. You're in that flow state by that guy with that unpronounceable name, and you're just flowing. And then one thing goes wrong and you completely lose the flow state. You might lose your job. You might lose your girlfriend. You might break your leg or your arm. You, have a sudden fiscal crisis or a sudden health crisis. You develop overwhelming dental pain, or you get a job, and so you're previously embarked on this tremendous program of self-improvement. You are exercising, you're eating right, you're reading books, you're growing spiritually, morally, physically, intellectually, but then you go and get a darn job, and now you're tired at the end of the day, and you just don't have the time or the inclination to work out, to read books, to do all the self-improvement that you were doing before. And so that life that was a symphony, right? It's not just a bittersweet symphony. It's just not a symphony at all. Now you just work. And then to kind of fill the hole in your soul, you might use pornography. You might drink a lot. You might, eat to excess. You might spend a lot. You might take up gambling, right? And so we have a life that's a symphony. And then one thing goes wrong and we're just completely knocked out of that symphony. So we need some path that enables us to, get back on our feet and, get this symphony going again, restart Mr. 40's opus, right? So I always dreamed about being a great classical music conductor or composer, but somehow I ended up here. But this is Mr. 40's opus, and I'm conducting the beautiful lyrics coming from Glib Medley, and the wonderful melodies coming from Esoteric, and the thrill of doing a live stream with 7 live viewers on YouTube right now. Whoa, 4 live viewers, my God, over on Rumble. I hope this doesn't go to my head and change me. 1 on live viewer on Facebook, 0 live viewers on Twitter, and 1 live viewer right now on Odyssey. All right, we're going out live on all these platforms, but at least with 15 live viewers altogether, I can have a little intimation of being that conductor. I remember once I was just jokingly, imitating a conductor in front of this woman who was a real musician, like a real classical music musician, and she started playing her instrument, in alignment with my conducting directions. That was like an incredible rush. I didn't realize that these gestures that the conductors make have real meaning, and that real serious musicians follow them and then perform in accordance. Like, what a high is that? Like, I had a slight acquaintance with Herbert Blumstadt, the maestro of the San Francisco Symphony. He was a big admirer of my father. And so it seems like all the big symphony conductors, they live a long time. Can you imagine like how happiness inducing that would be to just stand up there and have your little baton and, wave your arms around and, have an entire orchestra of high IQ, highly trained classical musicians follow you. My God, that'd be amazing. Anyway, so I'm a much bigger fan of developing some kind of flexible symphony approach to life than goals, right? Because goals are great in moderation, but I'm not as big a fan of goals as many people are, because I notice goals tend to narrow my focus, right? So I tend to have fewer options, and I just kind of constrict when I have overwhelming, overpowering goals in my life. Also, for me, goals tempt me towards shortcuts. And this might be just me. Another thing that goals do is that they give me excuse to avoid, other painful, more difficult, more challenging, more necessary things that I need to work on that I don't really want to look at, because I'm just so focused on my goals. And my goal might be to develop my live stream, or to make more friends, or to contribute more to my religious community, or to the recovery community, or to write a book. I have all these different goals, but they narrow my focus. And so, like, if you're watching this, you're probably, an insecure person like myself, someone for whom human connection is a significant part of the time, a foreign language, and, somewhat disconnected from the normal stream of life. And so if you're like me and you seize passionately and enthusiastically upon a goal, I want to be, for so many years of my life, it was really, really important to me to be Dennis Prager's #1 disciple. I wanted to be, a servant to the leader of the band, right? That's where I got a great deal of my meaning from, about, 1988 until about 1997. Like, I was like an only child, alone and wild. I was just a theologian's son. My hands were meant for different work, and my heart was known to none, right? I left my home, and I went my lone and solitary way. And Dennis Prager, he gave to me a gift I know I can never repay. Prager's a quiet man of music, denied a simpler fate. He tried to be a soldier once, but his music wouldn't wait. He earned his love through discipline, a thundering velvet hand. His gentle means of sculpting souls took me years to understand. But now the leader of the band is 75, and his eyes are growing cold. But his blood runs through my instrument, and his song is in my soul. My life has been a poor attempt to imitate the man. I'm just a living legacy to the leader of the band. My brothers' lives were different, for they heard another call. One went to Chicago and the other to St. Paul. And I'm in Colorado when I'm not in some hotel, living out this life I've chose and come to know so well. Dennis, I thank you for the music and your stories of the road I thank you for the freedom when it came my time to go. I thank you for the kindness and the times when you got tough. Dennis, I don't think I said I love you near enough. Well, the leader of the band is tired and his eyes are growing old, but his blood runs through my instrument and his song is in my soul. My life has been a poor attempt to imitate the man. I'm just a living legacy to the leader of the band. So at various times in my life, I just want to, devote myself to a cause, just lose myself in a cause, just like I'm Dennis Prager's #1 customer. I'm Dennis Prager's #1 fan. Or, some other, slim hook I just absurdly attached to, devote all my resources to try to, bring purpose and meaning and some sense of normality to my life. And it just makes the loneliness and the ache and the pain and the dysfunction, go away. And I can kind of, get rid of my unwanted self and just, embrace that, hey, I'm just a follower of the leader of the band. But that doesn't last for long, right? That doesn't work out. So I've had the opportunity to rescue people at times, been absolutely intoxicating. This woman who was living off her sister's couch and, sleeping in her office at the Los Angeles Press Club. And, I got to, bring her home and take her out. And she was just devoted to me. And I kind of got to feel like I was rescuing her. But that intoxicating effect of rescuing people, becoming a Captain Save-A-Ho, it doesn't last long, doesn't really get it done. So I'm kind of introspective right now because I just got in my monthly Amazon subscribe and save delivery. So I got about $600 worth of goods. But I'm starting to realize that no matter how much creamy chocolate Soylent I buy, it's never enough to fill that hole in my soul. Like even with the strawberry flavors, there are just so many amazing flavors of Soylent. And it's just so good for you. It's got the 36 grams of carbs, but 20 grams of protein and 24 grams of fat. Just like a really well-balanced meal right here. But there's not enough Soylent in the world to fill the hole in my soul. I can keep following gurus and devoting myself to gurus and cults, but in the end, I'm always going to come back to myself. And so I've not found great benefit from absurdly pursuing after goals. Moderate goals, right? Goals in moderation. Yeah, that's great. I graduated from Alexander Technique Training School. Right? That was a goal. I did it. I feel good about it. That helped my life. But my experience is goals just narrow my focus. They distract me from the things I really need to be working on. I cut corners in pursuit of goals. So I prefer the bittersweet symphony of trying to create a life where I respect the various segments of my life, from taking that cold shower at 3 a.m. to doing my exercises, listening to those podcasts, to doing the meditation, doing the positional release exercises, to writing some blog posts, to digging up old shows from the past that are not online and uploading them. One of the most important books I ever read was Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. And he makes the point that meaning is not a question that we ask life, but the meaning of life is a question that life is continually asking us.
Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning is one of the most important books of our time. But the problem is, most Americans don't even seem to know that it exists. Well, I read it.
Yes, I wanted to be Julie. I wanted to be Dennis Prager's protege. I wanted to be his #1 fan. But not just with Dennis Prager. I've just hopelessly devoted myself to all sorts of gurus and teachers. I'm just a fanboy at heart.
Recently, it is a fascinating read with so many gems of wisdom. And today, I'm going to tell you the 3 biggest takeaways that I have. I'm Julie Hartman, and this is Timeless.
Excellent. Whoa. Hey, is this music going to get me in trouble? I feel like it's going to get me in trouble with YouTube. I mean, I don't have the special protective qualities that Salem Broadcasting does.
Wasn't always this way in my life. I actually didn't like to read for most of my life. But when I graduated from college about a year ago, I decided to enter the second stage of education where I reread all of the important books that I once thought were boring. Well, one of those books was Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. I'll put a little asterisk next to this, though, because I actually wasn't assigned this book. And I sort of on the periphery knew about it. I didn't know that Viktor Frankl was a Holocaust survivor. I just thought it was a dude who was writing a book about meaning. But I decided to pick it up and read it recently. Super fast read. It took me 2 days. It's about 180 pages, big font, very palatable and easily understandable. And let me tell you, I think this book changed my life.
You can read this book in 90 minutes, maybe 2 hours.
Viktor Frankl is a name that all of us in America should know about. And just anecdotally, over the past 2 weeks, I've been going around in my life and asking some people who I know across all different age spectrums if they are aware of this book and of Viktor Frankl. And many of them say, like an earlier Julie Hartman, that they have no idea who he is. So
I like Julie. She's not very effective speaking one-on-one to the camera, right? She's much more effective talking to someone else, like me, right? I'm much more at home, much more intimate, much more effective talking to someone rather than talking just me one-on-one to the camera. So she's still, quite awkward talking one-on-one. So you'll notice with her views, her views are about the same as mine when she just talks one-on-one to the camera. Now, the blokes behind If Books Could Kill, these are two very skilled communicators, two very intelligent people, and they provide a good roadmap for doing a great podcast, right? These blokes are on the left. Yeah, I don't agree with them on many issues, but they are prepared. They're energetic. They edit what they do. They only release, quality shows. And if you're looking for someone to emulate on how to produce a high-quality podcast, this is If Books Could Kill. Here they're talking about the famous book Nudge. So the whole thing of their podcast is that they analyze airport bestsellers and how they destroy your mind.
Find what are essentially psychological principles, right? This is the kind of thing that was in psych textbooks when I was majoring in that in college as economics principles, right? As something that takes on the same kind of legitimacy as GDP figures or the much more quantitative work that economists are traditionally doing. So David Gall has mostly looked into this loss aversion thing. He says in one of his papers, he says, there's no general cognitive bias that leads people to avoid losses more vigorously than to pursue gains. Price increases do not impact consumer behavior more than price decreases. Messages that frame an appeal in terms of a loss are no more persuasive than messages that frame an appeal in terms of a gain. It is true that big financial losses can be more impactful than big financial gains, but this is not a cognitive bias that requires a loss aversion explanation. If losing $10,000 means giving up the roof over your head, whereas gaining $10,000 means going on an extra vacation, it is perfectly rational to be more concerned with the loss than the gain. Likewise, there are other situations where losses are more consequential than gains, but these require specific explanations, not blanket statements about a loss aversion bias.
This is why pop science sucks, kind of, right? The appeal of pop science is this general sense that you are now one of the smart ones with the secret knowledge. And it's no, of course not, right? You have to think about that for a second. Of course you're not. You're just some guy who's reading a book. It's just a way in which these types of books are just ego padding for the formerly gifted children who are no longer remarkable.
What David Gall told me was all of these concepts, right, which are just psych concepts, are just, they apply in some cases and do not apply in other cases. Like everything fucking else, it's sometimes loss aversion is an interesting rubric to use to understand human behavior. Sometimes it's not, and it's not always clear in advance whether it's going to be useful.
But it's the aesthetic of counterintuitiveness that people find so appealing in this shit.
This is a very good point, because what this book is pretending to be doing is we're pushing back against the overconfident predictions of these fucking economists who think that we're all rational actors, right? But actually, we can make overconfident predictions about people behaving irrationally. Right. They're reproducing the central error. They're just reproducing it in follow our rules, not their rules.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think that God, I have a half-formed thought about this.
You could just say, Mike, you're right and very handsome. You're correct. Everyone likes you.
All right. Yeah, just why don't you record me saying that in various tones, and then we can just...
I'll just have a soundboard.
Yeah.
It'll be like a Little John soundboard.
Give it enough time, you won't need a podcast co-host.
That's what I'm working toward, God damn it. Part 2 of the book, is the middle third of the book, is all about social influence. So one of the main ways that we are predictably irrational...
Okay, so this is a problem that I notice a lot of non-Jews have more than Jews, but it is a serious problem. A lot of non-Jews, particularly those influenced by Christianity, put a great premium on a misunderstanding of humility. So I notice a lot of non-Jews, particularly from Christian backgrounds, it's really important to them that they don't have any sense that they are better than average in any area. And that's not humility. Humility simply means accepting reality. So I may be in the top 5% with regard to verbal fluency or verbal IQ or writing ability. Okay, it is not unhumble of me to accept that, that's a strong possibility. At the same time, I'm probably in the bottom, 10% on all sorts of other parts of life. So you're not unhumble recognizing that you have certain gifts. Like if you're a painter, you should be spending your time painting. If you're a driller, spend your time drilling. If you're an amazing business administrator, spend your time administrating. If you're a profound, probing reader, spend your time reading. Like recognize what you do best. So don't run away from taking an IQ test. Don't run away from your gifts. Don't be afraid of reality and recognizing that you are better in some things and worse than normal in other things. Like we all have special gifts, right? Different people have different gifts. And it's this crazy self-destructive impulse I notice among some people influenced by Christianity that they don't want to face up to their gifts. Right? They don't want to face up to that they are above average in intelligence, that they are above average in their ability to do mathematics, that they are above average in their work capabilities. Right? It's not humble, and you're not doing the world or yourself any favors to run away from reality, run away from who you are, and to recognize different people have different gifts and you have different gifts than other people. And just because, say, you might be in the top 1% in some parts of life, it doesn't mean overall you're just a superior person. You can then look down on other people and treat them like trash. But I think a mature person who wants to live in reality recognizes, hey, in this area, I'm in the top 10% approximately. In this area, I'm in the top 1%. In this area, I'm in the top 20%. In this area, I'm well below average. In this area, I'm well below average. I really struggle in this area. I feel like, 90% of the people I know are far superior to me in this area. So like if you've got a gift, pursue it. Don't flee from recognition of reality. And when you're doing, you're starting to pursue your gifts, right? There's going to be humiliation that comes along as you're in unexpected circumstances. So if you're living in delusion, you're going to get humiliated. But I'm talking about a delusion that directly leads to your humiliation. So if you get out there and try new things, you're also going to get humiliated. I don't spend a lot of time in bars or sports bars. Right? If I go to a sports bar, go to a bar, if I go dancing, these are things that are very unfamiliar to me. And so I'm going to have a lot of humiliation, but that's the humiliation from getting some growth in pushing myself to do things that I'm not used to doing. That's not the same as humiliation because I'm completely out of touch with reality that, I think that my podcast or my show or my writing ability or my reading ability or my intelligence is just, so much greater than other people. Then if your delusion directly leads to humiliation, that you're, out of touch with reality, and the humiliation was salutary. Wakes you up to something that's going on. On the other hand, if you start doing things that are new and unexpected, like dancing, all right? Dancing is really awkward for me because I grew up a Seventh-day Adventist where dancing is a sin. And so I only, started to get into dancing just a teeny weeny bit after about age 16. But I had such strong imprinting from my childhood that dancing is a sin. It takes a lot for me to kind of overcome that imprinting. And I'm, very likely to make a complete fool of myself. So too with singing, right? I've had so many people tell me that, I'm a terrible singer, particularly people close to me, family members, that's just like imprinted in my soul and my psyche. In reality, my ability to sing is probably average, right? I don't have to be squeamish and shy and, retiring and dread, any opportunity that comes along to sing. So I think it's just sad when people flee from recognizing or investigating where their true gifts lie, right? Don't be afraid of being extraordinary. Don't be afraid of, finding out that you're extraordinary in some things and then pursuing your extraordinary abilities to the max. That's how you can best serve other people, best serve your potential best serve God instead of, trying to flee from reality. Like, reality is only reality 100% of the time. Reality always wins. If the reality is you're excellent in something, get out there and be excellent in it.
Is we're subject to all kinds of conformity bias. Are you familiar with the study where it was like a bunch of people in a room and there's an optical illusion where like one line is very obviously longer than the other line, and you're in a room with like 6 other people and they're like, they're the same length. They're the same length.
Have I listened to the audible version of Tom Wolfe's Bonfire of the Vanities? I have listened to an audio version. I think Blackburn Books or Blackstone Books. So if that's the same as the audible version, I'm not sure. Often there are multiple. I think there are like 3 different versions of George Eliot's Middlemarch on Audible. So I'm not sure. So I heard the Blackstone version, which was recorded simultaneously with the Tom Wolfe book coming out. What was it, 1987 or so? But maybe it's worth buying. I find it comforting listening to Tom Wolfe books, just letting them play all night. Right, mine's a dangerous neighborhood. I don't want to enter alone, so I just leave Audible books running all night. The last 2 weeks, I've just been listening to the book Reclaiming History, Vincent Bugliosi's demolition of various conspiracy theories about the John F. Kennedy assassination. So I've just been leaving that playing all night. Prior to that, I've mainly been listening to books on World War II. Let them play all night.
And then by the time it gets to you, you're like, they're the same length, even though you know that's not true.
I'm not familiar with the study, but I would absolutely pretend to think they were the same length, so I understand it.
So to illustrate this point, this goes through a couple chapters, but the 3 main examples that he uses. First is a grad student. There's a grad student in the same department as Richard Thaler, and he needs to finish his PhD, and he knows he needs to finish his PhD. He's not a full professor until he finishes his PhD, but he just can't get the gumption to do it. And he's missing out on like retirement matching benefits, which is worth something like $10,000 a year. Okay. Really big monetary incentive for him to finish his PhD, and yet he can't do it. But then Richard Thaler comes up with this innovative idea. He says, why don't you write me a bunch of checks and post-date them? So like March 1st, April 1st, May 1st. And if you don't give me a chapter of your PhD every month, I will cash the checks. You will be paying me. And so within 6 months, this grad student is able to finish his PhD.
Yeah, because he has a reverse job.
Yeah.
the whole reason they went to grad school was to avoid having a job, and yet he's been tricked into sort of having one.
We then get a genuinely pretty interesting example of a tax compliance experiment in Minnesota, which I'm going to send to you.
Okay. In the context of tax compliance, a real-world experiment conducted by officials in Minnesota produced big changes in behavior. Groups of taxpayers were given 4 kinds of information. Some were told that their taxes went to various good works, including education, police protection, and fire protection. I can already tell you that one didn't work. Others were threatened with information about the risk of punishment.
Let's see if I can get Elliott Blatt onto the show. I'm using Restream. I've never used Restream before, but Elliott, can you hear me, bro?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, beautiful, bro. What's going down?
Oh, just a grind. Here, I have to shut off the other. One. 1 sec.
Good to hear from our old friend Elliott Blatt. Yes, sir.
Yeah, a long time no talk, man. A long time. I was picking up on your physical fitness thing when I was in the car, and it's just weird getting older and feeling that you're never gonna like get your youth back, but you just kind of want to stem the tide. You want to stem the outgoing tide, and like I couldn't imagine doing a pull-up.
Yeah.
So I mean.
But trying them in front of 3 teenage girls who are like giggling at you? Yeah.
And that's weird. Like I also recently had that experience of being mocked by adolescent girls.
And then they all went up and tried to imitate me, but they were like boosting each other up to try to accomplish a pull-up.
Yeah. But I almost got in a fight with like 3 18-year-old girls.
Youths?
At the beach. Youth. These were European ancestry.
Excellent.
Girls.
Wow. Well, why did you stop fighting, bro?
Well, it's kind of an amusing story. Like, I'm out on the tanning deck, this roof of this beach house, and it's usually a very sedate, high IQ sort of gathering place, but today these 3 girls had somehow learned about it. They Googled and found this little very out of the way beach, and they made their way down there, and then they started playing the radio at like a very not the radio. They were playing their phone or whatever at a pretty high volume, and they were playing rap, which is not exactly my favorite genre of music. Look, you might have guessed. And like, of course, my blood is just slowly starting to boil, but I didn't take the initiative and tell him to turn it down. But there was this, so two of the girls were situated together, and there was a third that was a friend of theirs that was situated away from them. So one of them yells over to the other, "Do you want me to turn this down?" And then I said, I just saw an opening, I saw my opportunity. And I said, "Yes, I think we'd all appreciate that." And my, my tone of voice sort of did suggest a bit of annoyance, but she wasn't talking to me. She's like, "I wasn't talking to you," And I said, "Well, it'd be really respectful to everyone here if you would just keep your music at a moderate level, And then, she's like, "Oh, shut up," and blah, blah, there's all kinds of, screamy nonsense. And then the whole thing they kept wanting to escalate the argument, take it further than it needed to be, rather than just simply turning it down. They wanted to sort of teach me a lesson. They were just berating me. Now, bear in mind, all of them were wearing these thongs, right? This trait now. These girls don't wear simply bathing suits, but they just showed these little thin, these wafer thin little bathing suits. They're effectively nude.
How attractive were they?
They were solid. They were solid. 7 and above.
Wow.
Not like 7, 7.5 ish.
Okay.
But they were barely legal.
Yeah.
It was a very morally compromising situation. So I'm like, oh God. And then they're like, I keep trying to just tone the whole thing down, speaking in civil tones. I felt like I'm twice their age plus, I'm like
3 times their age.
Yeah. Quite possibly. And I'm like, there's no dignified way out of this situation right now. When you've got 3 adolescent girls screaming at you, there's no way that you look good.
Yeah.
So they're screaming at me, I'm screaming at them, and I'm not screaming at them. I'm just saying, this could all end right now. We don't need to do this argument, so forth. So this is going on for what seemed like an eternity, but it was probably only 5 minutes maximum. And then this woman, some part of the high IQ group that was sort of on the other side of the building, sort of started to pick up on what's going on. And this woman, who I think is a school teacher, came over to sort of diffuse the situation, right? Now I feel like a child,
Yeah.
And she's like, "What's going on here? Can I just talk to both of you individually?" So she separates us into groups since they were talking. And then, so they talk to the girls first, and then they come to me, and I'm playing along, and I'm like, I just wanted some quiet. I asked them to turn it down, et cetera, et cetera. And then I'm not going to be browbeaten by these retards. So I used the word. I called them retards. And now literally this woman, you would have thought that I had just taken out a handgun at that point. The teacher, the older woman, was mortified by the fact that I used this term. She physically just started backing away from me, it's so hard to describe, and then, but then I said, then she stopped talking to me and blah, blah. And then the whole thing just finally kind of fizzled out, but, it's just so weird. This is why I don't like to deal with people. Look, I don't know how to manage basic human relations,
So you're not going to become a big brother to some teenage girls?
No. And so I ended up calling one of them Twerky Booty, which I thought was pretty good improvisation.
Did you get phone numbers?
No, bro.
And where did they go to school?
I think they sound like, some sort of local San Francisco high school, I'd imagine. And they talked about I would imagine so. They were talking about their jobs at Cheesecake Factory and stuff. They weren't that bright, but
were they religious?
I don't know. I doubt it.
And what do you think their IQs were?
I would say 90.
Oh, wow.
So they weren't 100 material, right?
Yeah.
Just
and how close physically did you come to them?
About 5 or 6 feet.
Okay.
I kept a very, very respectful distance, and
you weren't rubbing yourself.
No. I said, "What would Luke do?" And I said, "Don't do that."
Yeah. And were they Eastern European? Is that what you said?
No. They were like,
full European. Though, yeah, European Americans
of some sort. Yeah, I
okay.
don't know. They were white, Luke. What can I say? But they all had all this, bleached hair and all this shit. It's all and all the makeup and shit. It's just complicated visual stimuli that they're putting forward. But anyway, so I don't know. We got on this particular topic. Oh yes, being mocked by young girls. So it was very humiliating. It's like getting in a fight with a homeless person. Like,
did they call you any names?
Oh, they called me a fucking white man. Excuse my language and all that. They sort of kind of have all the woke vocabulary.
Did they call you a pedo?
No, they didn't cross that Rubicon. No. So anyway.
So if you had to do it all over again, how would you have handled it now that you've had the, time to climb the mountain of wisdom?
You know what I would have done? I would have actually just screamed at them to turn it down and let's let the chips fall where they may. Because I think my trying to reason with them actually was interpreted as weakness. I should have taken command. Right?
You mean you should have just seized them and shaken them?
Yeah. Just all three of them. Gather them up.
Just gather them up and shaking them.
Yeah. All at once.
Slap them.
Yeah. So
you're out there winning friends.
Winning friends, influencing people, yeah.
Yeah, beautiful.
But let's talk about, so anyway, this physical exercise kick you're on. And I'm trying to get on. And my exercise regimes are always thwarted by something,
laziness.
It's not laziness. It's like physical pain now. It's like, I told you I went out to try and walk 10 miles. I set a goal of walking 10 miles. And, I have this loop. It's about 1.25 miles. So I was going to do so many laps of this loop to hopefully get to 10 miles. And I got to 6 miles and my feet were just screaming in pain. Like I never understood foot pain until this. It was like, it's just that dull driving pain you get, I don't know if you get that. So
yeah, was it plantar fasciitis? Do you know what particular foot pain it was?
I think that's what it was. It was sort of like, it was mainly around the ball and the front part of my foot.
Do you feel it first thing in the morning when you get up and walk to the bathroom? No, okay.
It's only after excessive,
okay.
After a considerable period of exercise.
And I gave you 10 solutions. Did you? What did you?
Yeah,
what did you end up doing for it?
Well, okay, so I identified a pair of shoes I want to buy, but they're $165. And I'm like, I've never paid more than $70 for a pair of shoes, and that was
can't put a price on comfort and self-care, bro.
I know, but I have this aesthetic temperament.
Puritan.
Yeah.
A
It wouldn't
Jew
allow
would
me to
not.
keep-
A Jew would not think this way. This is
No,
your
yeah, no,
Gentile
that's
side.
yeah. So I'm trying to get over it. I'm like, I'm worth it, right? You
Yeah.
know, I can pay $165, and that's even before shipping and tax and everything. You know, like for a pair of shoes, it just I don't know. I'm sort of stuck like 10 years ago. I see all these pricings. I remember I could go out to lunch for like $8. I could have like a full solid lunch for $8. And now, you know, I'm lucky to get out of there for under $20. It's ridiculous, Luke. So yeah, I'm a tightwad. At the end of the day, I'm a tightwad. But I am going to pull the trigger. I got a raise, by the way. So
Mazel tov.
thank you, bro. Thanks. It felt good. My work's being appreciated. So I feel like I could treat myself. So I am going to pull the trigger on these shoes. But then you research all the shoes, and there's so many different shoes out there. And then you get lost in this. Once you've committed to spending that amount of money on a pair of shoes, you don't want to make a mistake. You want to get the best, you know? So there's all this comparison shopping and stuff like that, which...
What about a stationary bike so it takes that enormous load off your feet? I mean, how much do you weigh?
I don't even want to. I can't admit it, bro. It's too painful.
240? 240?
No, not that bad, bro. Come
230.
on. No. Look, when I was in high school, I was like 130 pounds. I was on the cycling team. I was fit, right? So, like, I used to stress. If I got to 132 pounds, I felt fat in high school, you know? But now I'm far heavier than that, bro, and it hurts me.
Are you 6 foot?
So, but hold on. So the point is, if I start this exercise regime, it would just be sort of like I'd be gritting it out.
Yeah.
I would just be grinding, you know? It would just be another discipline, you know?
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's like a healthy psychology to have.
No, that's why I'm not a big fan of goals. What's much better is to have a bittersweet symphony going on.
Yeah.
You know, where the different parts of your life work together. So goals just narrow your focus. Like you had the goal of walking 10 miles, but you're doing perhaps tremendous damage to your feet. And so by emphasizing the goal of walking 10 miles, you may very well have been doing yourself far more harm than good. And so too, like if people who have the goal of lifting a certain amount of weight, they might cheat in how they do it and do damage to themselves. So I'm not a big fan of goals, like mild to moderate goals. Yeah, but I'm not a big fan of putting a premium on goals because of the very situation that you described. So I think you join me, and it's much better trying to build a life that's a symphony where everything's just working together. If you can't walk, then you do, you know, other physical activity, and you want a life where all the different components kind of work together like a symphony.
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, this is why I'm such a big advocate for, you know, country life and farming and things where exercise is just naturally part of your day rather than this weird sort of block of time that you carve out and devote yourself to. I mean, that's an integrated life, you know, where there's hard work, but it's not like 9 to 5 hard work, you know, it's just periods, short-ish 2-3 hour blocks of hard work. And then it's sort of balanced out by other types of work or other types of activities that are physical. I think that's like the natural way to live. But our sort of 9 to 5 desk-bound life
you can make a beautiful symphony out of your 9 to 5 desk-bound life, bro.
Well, I thought about the stationary bike, but I'm on the 3rd floor, and I think that pedaling, that just the rumbling of the machine.
There's no rumble. There's no bro. There's no rumble. There's nobody else hears it, feels it. It's and I only spent like $150 on the stationary bike, so it's not like it's some expensive piece of machinery. No one else feels it. No one else is affected by it when I get on my stationary bike.
You know what? I'll reconsider that. I bought a regular bike. I got a great mountain bike at a yard sale. But I just never seem to actually get on it. And
also it's more dangerous, you know, our age. You fall off. Paul Gottfried was hospitalized and, you know, laid up for weeks. So how many people do we know who had biking accidents and been laid up for weeks, if not killed by it. So it's it's increasingly dangerous when you get to our age and older, particularly in the city.
Yeah, speaking of that, I worked this company, and one of my many managers was an avid mountain biker, and he was also ethnically Chinese, and his English wasn't particularly good to start with. And then he fell off his mountain bike and just knocked like 4 of his front teeth out,
Yeah.
And then when he would talk, he would just sound completely retarded. He was completely unintelligible. So
I know a guy who's
imagine
really
that.
his
What
life.
would that do to your live streaming career?
Wait. Like, yeah. So I know this guy whose life was martial arts. He got punched in the throat, and he can only speak at a whisper for the rest of his life.
Was it worth it, bro? Yeah, that's what I think. Yeah, exactly.
And then I got another story about the shortcomings of goals. There was this one bloke, he wanted to devote his life to having a family and raising kids. And then he caught one of my shows where I pointed out that parents really don't make that much of a difference in their kids' outcomes, that there's no parenting style that's statistically shown to make a difference. Like, he had all these ideas on how he wanted to raise his kids and how they were just going to be, transformational. So he went and read a whole bunch of academic studies and, realized that I was basically correct, that the nurture assumption is basically faulty, that we're largely the product of our genes plus our peer group. So that was like his, number one goal and dream, disappeared upon examination. So a lot of people develop, goals that they want to pursue to an absurd degree, but upon, any sort of critical examination, the goal just falls apart.
Yeah. Yeah. I knew a guy who joined like a religious cult, I guess it would be. And he just seemed to lose all of his goals. And I said, well, what are you going to do? And he's like, well, wherever God puts me, He had just completely let off the whole notion of goals and so forth. And I found that terrifying when he said that. I like goals. Goals goals give me a certain zest, They make life. There's been periods when I had no goals and I felt completely adrift. And I don't like that feeling.
Yeah. What about the downside of goals, in that it narrows your focus and it tempts you to cheat to achieve your goals, to shortchange yourself in other areas?
Yeah.
Have you experienced that?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I mean, I have goals, right? But I also have a sense of authenticity. Like, why get something and have it be inauthentic? I think that I would hate the imposter feeling, And it seems like cheating or taking a shortcut would always leave you this stale residue of an imposter feeling. It's a big term up here, the imposter syndrome. Do you hear of that?
Yeah. A lot of women talk about it.
Right. And it's like a really big, it's like women in tech, especially.
Yeah.
And they talk about it, and they have, workshops on it. And the truth is that they just don't like tech. But tech is where the prestige is. And so they go there because they want the prestige, and they can't admit that to themselves. So there's this massive cognitive dissonance. So anyway, no, I don't feel like shortcuts. That was something like it's a lesson I learned really early, and I really took to heart, which is that there are no shortcuts, right? You have to, if you want to do something, you have to build the foundation and put it up, brick by brick. And if you skimp on any of the foundational pieces, you're just going to pay for it later. It's all going to come crashing down.
So where do you get the power to lead a life that's a symphony, so that you're eating right, you're not overeating, you're not over drinking, you're not over consuming YouTube, you're exercising appropriately in consonance with what's in your body's best interest. You're getting appropriate amounts of social interaction. You are working productively. Where do you get the power to create a life that's a symphony, bro?
Well, I don't really have that. I have a general direction like I like to go in, but my best laid plans are often torn asunder. So, but I'll tell you what I do, how I figure things. I figure everything from sleep. So, how did I sleep last night? And the
How
answer
did you
is
sleep?
well,
Beautiful.
poorly last night.
Oh.
Because I messed up my meals and I stopped at like this roadside Mexican restaurant that just completely just malformed my digestion. So it was a long night, bro. And it's like anytime I can, if I'm not taken off my routine, I can function very well. But as soon as my routine is disrupted, it takes me like 3 days to recover. So my power, I guess, would come from my routine.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And what do you do? How often do you feel lonely?
I don't feel lonely, Luke, but I am a loner. I feel bad that I don't feel lonely, but when I'm with people, I can't wait to I can't wait to be by myself.
So if I were to tell you overnight scenes, dinner and wine, Saturday girls, I was never in love, never had the time in my hustle and hurry world, laughing myself to sleep, waking up lonely. I needed someone to hold me. Such a crazy old town. It can drag you down till you run out of dreams. So you party all night to the music and lights, but you don't know what happiness means. I was dancing in the dark with strangers, no love around me, when suddenly you found me. Oh, girl, you're every woman in the world to me. That doesn't mean anything to you. That doesn't resonate with you.
Luke, talking to myself and feeling old, sometimes I'd like to quit. Nothing ever seems to fit.
Yeah.
Hanging around, nothing to do but frown.
Yeah.
Rainy days and
Mondays always bring me down.
Always get me down.
Well said, bro. Well said.
So I've been watching a lot of Karen Carpenter appreciation videos. This is a whole YouTube genre.
Yes, she's amazing. Like I always feel like she's singing directly to me.
Yeah, bro. Yeah, bro. She died young too. It's a tragic story.
How many of you watch?
Of these appreciation videos?
Yeah.
At least a dozen. At least a dozen.
Yeah. What have you learned?
I learned, well, a lot of, she just had a natural talent. Like there is that thing. There is such thing as, she seemed to have a very effortless talent. And very few people have, people are gifted. And by gifted, I mean, they're just kind of born with, I don't know, maybe she worked hard at her voice, but it doesn't seem so. She just there's just something very fluidity to her, I guess. But they were a brother and sister team, which I found a bit amazing because I don't really.
Did you also get the sense that like she's talking directly to you in her songs? I mean, she's like with many singers, it just feels like a performance, but with Karen, it just seems to come from the heart and is felt in the heart.
Yeah, that's all true. Yeah, that's all true. And I do just like sort of the understatedness of performances on TV, those videos back then, where just not all that screeching, like all these female vocalists. It seems it started with Madonna, where with just that screeching, shrewish voice of hers, it just ruined music, or at least ruined female vocalists as far as.
And she'd flash her tits too. A friend went to a concert in like 1985, and she'd flash her tits.
Madonna, really?
Yeah, I don't think Karen Carpenter ever did that.
No, I don't think so.
She didn't need
to. Did I tell you, I almost had a brush with greatness with Madonna.
Really?
Yeah. I went for a long hike. Drove up to. I was living in Boston. Drove up to New Hampshire. Drove back really tired, and for some reason I had to I got a ride with someone and I was dropped off, so I had to walk past the Boston Garden where she was performing, and it was all like Madonna this, but Madonna lights and big graphics and things. So I'm walking past, and then you have to walk past along this footbridge, and I'm walking north on this footbridge, and walking towards me are like three big beefy guys in black t-shirts, right? Mm-hmm. And they're walking, and then in the middle, they were like surrounding this woman completely dressed in white, in a white robe with a white hood over her head to cover her face. And so I'm going north, they're going south, so we just pass each other. And I said, God, that was odd. And then like 100 yards later, I put the pieces together. I'm like, holy shit, that was Madonna. So,
I had that same experience, but with Jenna Jameson. After Jenna Jameson published her book, when I'd go to the convention, she'd be surrounded by like 3 burly bodyguards. So before that, I could just walk up to her and talk to her. Like, she came on my show many times, but when she became a star, there were all these 3 burly bodyguards. And it put a crimp in our relationship. She's an actress. Oh, that's a very crude way of putting it. She's an actress of a certain genre.
Adult entertainer.
Yeah. Oh, hey, what do you... Go ahead.
What is the politically correct term to talk to?
What do you think of Peter Zeihan?
Well, I never heard of him until you introduced him to me. And I watched a whole bunch of his stuff. And he was very persuasive, and I became like basically a true believer because I had nothing else to go on. And I liked him. I thought he was a little bit, some of his verbal tics are a little annoying. Nevertheless, his analysis seemed accurate to me, being a complete, neophyte in the subject. And so I more or less became a true believer, and I found his analysis very comforting because it was very pro-America. I like the idea of America being strong. So it sort of kind of resonated with some sort of patriotic urges I might have. So I became quite a fan of his, and I didn't quite understand his critics. So, and I heard your show last night. I think you're right about his delivery. His delivery is charismatic, and it sort of adds to its credibility. And his critics seem like nibbling nebbishes and dorks, but they may very well be right. I have no way of knowing.
Yeah, I really like, he doesn't emit neediness. Unlike, almost every other performer on YouTube, there's just no sense that I get from Zeihan that he is particularly needy for you to pay attention to him or to love him or to praise him.
Yeah, you had picked up on that. I had not. I thought it's a good observation. And there was a certain swagger because he does kind of appear, in athletic clothes, out for height and so forth. It's sort of, if you're that good, you can do that, right? If you're not that good, you have to put on a suit.
Yeah, there's a sense I notice with a lot of people on YouTube is like, please fill me up, please, follow me, please like me, please praise me, please support my Patreon, please follow me, and there's just none of that with Zeihan, and he gets astronomical numbers of views, precisely because he's not pleading for it.
Also a valid observation. I haven't, but is there an anti-Zeihan? Is there like the Darth Vader to the Luke Skywalker that is Peter Zeihan?
Well, he has his critics. I mean, he obviously gets a lot of things wrong. Who are his most famous critics? Is there like a school, the anti-Zeihan school? No, and he gets zero academic attention. Right. He gets zero conventional serious attention. So he's not written about in serious newspapers. He's not he gets zero academic attention. So it's only the odd podcaster who takes shots at him.
I didn't know that. I didn't know he wasn't respected by academics. And does that diminishes him in your eyes?
I think it's something. I'm not sure the full import, but I do think there is, a reason that he just doesn't show up, because generally speaking, the things that academics are interested in, regular people are not. And so, people who are famous are rarely considered significant by academics, and the people that academics consider significant are rarely famous.
Yeah.
Hey, did you ever hear from Deep Left Jokkul and crew to express their thank you?
I wanted to. Okay, I was just about to bring up Deep Left Jokkul. Amazing. See, we live on the same wavelength.
Beautiful.
So Deep Left Jokkul is actually a Peter Zeihan fan, for what it's worth.
Really?
Yeah. So I brought him up, we had a dinner, after our little hiking adventure, and we had a dinner, and I brought him up, and he's very much in Team Zeihan, and he doesn't like his critics. So we didn't talk that long about it, but he brought it up. But yes, so after I had mentioned, like the day after we had spoken about our little junket with Deep Left Jokkul, he emailed me and texted me. So I have to think that word got back to him.
Okay.
I don't know if I think one of his posse is a Luke Ford viewer. Let's put it that way. And I think word got back because it just seemed a bit too coincidental.
Yeah.
So we're cool. We're cool,
Yeah.
bro. I'm down with Deep Left Jokkul, even though.
No, he's a very thoughtful young man. He's not toxic.
That's right. Yeah. I like anybody who's willing to put themselves out there and express things and, confront an audience and engage with them. Even if I disagree with them, I think it's a really great quality to have. It's a great ability, and people like that need to, it's like you say, I look at people in their genre, and he has a certain genre, and good for him. I think the internet's a better place because of people like that. So same with Richard Spencer. Like Richard Spencer says a lot of stuff I don't agree with, but I think he's just, at the end of the day, he's a net asset for the internet.
And are you subscribing to Richard's Patreon or Charles Johnson's Patreon?
I am subscribed to Richard still. I'm waffling on Charles. Charles's output seems to have diminished slightly. I'm not opposed to it, but I just need like one more piece of information about Charles Johnson before I subscribe, and hopefully maybe you can provide that piece of information.
Yeah.
How about you? Are you subscribed?
No. I don't think actually there's any unique content from Charles Johnson if you subscribe.
Okay. I just need to get to the bottom of this thing. Like everyone's a spy, everyone's paid off.
It's all liquid. It's all liquid, bro.
Yeah, but then at the same time, Colin Liddell seems to think Russia is behind everything. He seems to be, based on his tweets, he seems to think every opinion or every contrary opinion out there is the work of the Russians and Russian influence, which to me seems insane. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. And I like Colin. I think he's very fun to listen to. I think he's intelligent. And I know he knows a lot more about stuff than I do. But then he says things that I just simply can't accept. And it makes me put them in this sort of possibly crazy category. And I don't want him to be there. What do you think about that?
I enjoy Colin Liddell when he says things that don't make sense to me, such as his, absolute contempt for John Mearsheimer. I don't struggle with it. I just let it go.
Right. Yeah. I'm a complete amateur in all of this, geopolitical stuff. I basically believe the last thing that I hear.
Right. Yeah.
The last argument I hear, I'm on board with it. As long as it seems logical and seems plausible, I'm on board. You got me, I'll pay the fee. I'll subscribe. So obviously there's like a level of politics out there that I don't get. There's a level of nefarious acting and double cross and shills and spies and stuff that's out there. I don't know it. And so I'm just like a helpless rube out there consuming what's fed to me.
So Art Bell says, Luke, we need a decoding Luke Ford where you rank yourself by the Garometer checklist of younger Luke Ford when he was desperately trying to become a guru while leading a completely contradictory life.
Well, speaking of Art Bell, not this Art Bell, but the real Art Bell.
Yeah.
Art Bell has been appearing in my feeds, like the real Art Bell who died, I think, in 2018.
That's powerful.
Do you know what he was all about? Do you know his story?
A little bit. He was a conspiracy monger.
Basically, yeah. He was a radio guy, and he found some sort of niche in the whole Bigfoot UFO kind of thing, And he lives in Nevada, like in the desert in Nevada, and he had this show, and he has a certain charisma to his voice. I could see how. What I want to know is, did he really believe it, or was it just an act? Because he seems quite high IQ. I mean, so is this just an act with these guys? I
think it's very hard for it to be an act. It can be an exaggeration of something real because you have to perform with a lot of energy. But I don't think it's completely an act. I think it's a combo.
Mm. But, I can know that, like, you're driving in the desert at night and the stars are out and it's beautiful and vast and sort of awesome in the expanse. That type of message, I think, is just far more satisfying.
Yeah.
Because you're alone and you want to be connected to some sort of bigger story, and like, what bigger story could there be than like aliens and Bigfoot and government conspiracies that are keeping the truth from you and stuff like that?
Well, the major monotheist religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, all emerged out of the desert for just that reason. When you're in the desert, there's a sense of the vastness of the universe, and you desperately feel a need to construct a meaning that you probably don't feel nearly as much as if you're happily living in a city.
Yeah, that's just it. The loneliness, like, you drive in the desert for like an hour or maybe two, but after 2 hours of driving in the desert, you're like, holy shit, this is lonely. I mean, really lonely. And it probably drives people crazy in a certain way.
Yeah, and when you're crazy, you're desperate.
Yeah. So that is sort of a case for the city in a way. But it is awesome. I remember taking the bus through Wyoming, and looking at the, sort of sunset to nighttime, and just the hugeness, the vastness of the landscape, and the surreal colors of the sunset, and like the utter loneliness of the thing. It's an intense feeling. It's like,
it can be shattering. Have you ever been to Yosemite? Like that drive where you first drive into Yosemite Valley? I mean,
I haven't been, and I'm actually, relatively clear by. But the reason I don't go is because it's completely. You have to make reservations. You have to. The traffic to get in is immense. It's just not. It's not the nature experience you think. It's just too many people. So I always do something else. But you're right. It's a complete oversight on my part.
Wow. I mean, it's the most beautiful place in the world. So, yeah.
Really, bro. I mean, I've seen pictures. I mean, it certainly is nice, but
it just.
Really? Is that nice?
Yeah. It's incredible.
Okay. I mean, I'm a skier, you know. I go up in the mountains all the time, so I've seen a lot of nice panoramic vistas. You know what I mean, dude? Still, you're not a skier, are you, Luke?
I'm not. I only did it once.
No. You're missing out.
It seems both dangerous and expensive.
It is not dangerous. It is expensive. The equipment has evolved to such a degree that it's really a lot less dangerous than it used to be. I mean, almost to a fault, because now you can get like, basically retards out there skiing. It's depressing. It used to be very elite. It had this sort of elite, dangerous characteristic to it. Richard Spencer's a skier, bro. You know, does that tell you? Does that tell you all you need to know, or what?
Well, I remember when I was growing up in the Napa Valley, many of my classmates would go skiing, and I don't know, about 10 to 20% of the time they'd return with broken bones. Yeah, and in cuts.
I did break my arm once. Once, but I was doing something stupid. So I think if you can definitely mitigate your risk by leveraging your IQ. That's the saying.
I mean, I'll do anything for love, but I won't do that.
No, it's very funny. There's nothing more exhilarating than a nice day skiing. Like, it just fills your soul with sunshine, bro. It's so nice. You feel like the world is just filled with infinite possibilities. All the darkness in your soul just gets flooded out by the brilliant, bright light of the sun reflecting off the snow, and the gentle swish of snow being shuddered from one side to the next. It's really lovely.
Well, I mean, a bad day's fishing beats a good day's working every time. You know, a bad day's fishing isn't a bad day at all, just as long as you're wetting the line. When the man in the boat is tallying up, he's going to look down at you and you'll smile. He'll say, bad day's fishing is good for your soul, so decided to the end of your life. Bad day's fishing beats a good day's working every time. Well, the fish swim by and they say to the worm, tell the fool up there he's going to get burned. Sleeping in the sun like that, mate, he's going to fry. He knows a bad day fishing beats a good day's working every time.
I have a feeling you didn't write that.
Slim Dusty, man. That guy had a way with words.
Excuse me. So I think I have to get back in the water, Luke. If I'm going to lose this weight, I have to actually get in the water. So that's the next project.
How's your cough coming along?
Well, better, but it's not gone, as you've just witnessed. Sort of, I don't think there's anything can be done. I mean, I don't know. I've managed to elude COVID without the vax, though, bro. So you have to give my lungs some credit.
Mazel tov, bro.
Thanks. Thanks, dude. It only flares up when I laugh. It only hurts when I laugh, Luke.
It only hurts when I cry.
Daddy drinks because you cry. All right, bro. I think that's enough.
Okay, blessings, bro.
All right.
Okay, guys. The fish ain't biting, but the skeeters are. Little buggers gone hiding. They don't want to get caught. Too nice a day to be a dangle on the end of a line. But a bad day's fishing beats a good day's working every time. Little old worm around a big old hook. He don't mind the water in this babbling brook. They're swimming around and having a flamin' good time, right? That's what this show's all about. Just having a